Carlson Vineyards. I just want to give you guys a little heads up about who we are, who we've been, and who we want to become. So Carlson Vineyards is the third oldest winery in the state of Colorado. We have the third oldest liquor license, and I don't know if you heard him, but Hank's walking by. We're also known for our cats. We are home to Laughing Cat wines, but we have about 20 different wines out right now. So what we wanted to feature for you today is one of our very special projects. It is a dry red. It's called the Ren Quin. It's a Syrah and Limburger blend. Limburger's Eastern European varietal. It's one of the wines that we've been making 100% Limburger wine out of our tea red for, I don't know, 20, 25 years, something like that. Some of the oldest vines on our property. Parker and Mary Carlson's started Carlson Vineyards in 1988. And since then, they've branched out from semi-sweetened fruit wines to about 12, 13 different dry wines as well. So we have dry whites, dry rosés, dry reds. Then we also kind of hit into our semi-sweets with our Rieslings and Gewürztraminers. And then our fruit wines, which are 100% Colorado fruit. So our peach wine is just peaches, cherries, just cherries. So the wine we are talking about today is a very special project that Garrett and I have started with our family. So it's called the Ren Quin Project. The artwork is one of a kind, so very unique. It was painted by Josephine Wren and Madeleine Quinn, which happen to be my two daughters. They were only 1 and 3 years old at the time, and so this is their finger painting. They were naked at the kitchen table. One of them did have a diaper on, so 1 and 3-year-old were very proud of their artwork. So part of this project is we donate back to the community. So we are a family-centered business. We're a community-centered business, and we just want to find a way to make our community stronger and better, and just be able to grow together. So this is part of our profits are donated back to a rotating line of charities and good causes. The artwork will stay the same because we haven't figured out how to get 2 little girls to share an art piece since they were 1 and 3. They're now 4 and 6 years old. The oldest, Josephine Wren, is very proud. There's a purple bunny on the front of it. But it is one of our bigger reds. So it is a dry red, which is kind of branching out from what Carlson's was traditionally known for. The Limburger has a little bit of a peppery finish, so does the Syrah. So it's just a really one of our bolder wines. We'll continue with this project, and I think we're hoping to branch it out as well with a red, a white, and maybe a rosé. So keep an eye out for us. Come see us. We have 2 different locations. We are in Palisade, but we're also in downtown Grand Junction, where we have an indoor location, about 3,000 square feet. So we're hoping to keep seeing people all year round, but we also want to support your project. So thanks for thinking of us. Let us know what you think, and we'll see you soon. That went better than I thought it did. I think the reason why I ended up having to get pulled into that video is we were in mid-harvest. And so Garrett and Justin, who are the primary winemakers, were outside digging out grapes, or what we had of grapes. So I'm glad you guys are here. What we did decide to feature is the Ren Quinn. And there is a 4- and 6-year-old here that might pop their heads in a little bit just to tell you a little more about the project. But just a little bit about Carlson Vineyards. Right now we're actually at our downtown tasting room location. So if you see the bricks behind us, this building was built in 1907. So instead of moving into a newer building, we moved into an older building. So this is downtown Grand Junction. If you hear noises in the background, we are tasting still. So there might be a few people up front, but I'll try to kind of project my voice so you guys can hear me a little bit better. Like we're saying, Carlson Vineyards has been around for a long time. Part of that, when winemaking started in the valley, they made wine of what was grown here, and there was not a lot of vinifera grapes growing around. So Parker and Mary really kind of focused on the fruit wines, the Riesling. I think it was a Riesling, a cherry, and a peach wine was their very first vintage. So since then, grape growing has expanded. So, we have vinifera grapes, we have cold hardy varietals. Even growing space is kind of expanded in the valley. So we're kind of limited to what's within the mountain range around us. So there's not a lot of room to expand. But because Parker and Mary started early on, they've kind of built a name for themselves as being approachable. And they've always been community centered because that's kind of how you had to be when it was a small community. So we kind of just taken that on since then. Casey is with me. She is part of our crew, and one of her large roles is to help us expand on that role that we have in the community. So she's our main connection between the winery and other nonprofits, other community supported projects. And I was just going to let Casey kind of go over a little bit of the history of the Ren Quinn project, what we've done before, what we're doing now, and maybe what we're looking to do kind of in the future. And then we can kind of answer some questions and taste some wine. So thanks guys for watching.
Yeah. So hi guys, I'm Casey. I do get the privilege of working really closely with Garrett and Kaylin, and I also work in our tasting rooms at both locations. So I get a good amount of time with the public as well, and get to work with various people within our community. So it's been a really great kind of background for me to be able to start taking on more stuff with the Ren Quinn project. And so this is actually our 3rd vintage of our Ren Quinn wine. We've had our first vintage was a dry white blend of Riesling and orange muscat. And then our second vintage was a blend of Lemberger, Petit Syrah, and Syrah. And that one was a special vintage because it was a blend of Parker's last vintage of grapes as owner and Garrett's first vintage of grapes as owner. And so it was kind of like the former and the new coming together. And so that was cool. And so we've done various things to donate towards different causes within our community. Sometimes it's been $1 of every bottle that's been purchased. Sometimes it's been $5. So it's been different things. I think the first vintage was 100% nonprofit. Does that sound right? It sounds right.
Yeah, so it's a lot of calculating on my part though. Yeah.
Yeah. But and so, yeah, part of it is, we've donated to various nonprofits in the community. We've donated to various families that have a special attachment to our winery. We've donated to the school district. What else? The Eureka Science Center. So whatever, cause or need that we line up with and that we believe in and we want to support and encourage. We have our minds on it. So kind of part of what we're wanting to do is we want to move the project bigger. We want to expand it. And one of the things that we want to do is turn it into not just a single bottle project, but multiple bottles that kind of are in a series called the Renquin Project. So it'll be funds from the purchases of these bottles will go into kind of like a larger pot that we'll be able to donate to various causes every month. So the idea is that we have a set amount roughly that we would like to donate to a different cause every month. And then that's kind of where we want to go from there. So part of what we've been doing, we started kicking that off in January, this past January, and we were able to donate to a local nonprofit here called The House, a safe place for Western Slope teens that helps disadvantaged youth that have been displaced from various situations. And so we were able to donate to them this month, a lot more than we expected to as well, because we had a set number that we wanted to donate. And then kind of through these bottle purchases, we were able to contribute $5 of every bundle of wine that we sold. We added that onto our original donation, and we were able to exceed what we even expected to be able to do. And so part of that is also just our public is also in support of seeing our community flourish and grow and prosper. And so it's something that a lot of our supporters come in and support as well. So it's been really nice to see start to grow.
So I mentioned that there might be some noise in the background, and it just got worse. If you guys are having trouble hearing us, we can try to go into the creepy basement. So let me know if we need to move our location. We can do that.
Deborah, you can mute Uli. I think he's the only one that's not muted.
Yeah, you're fine. We can hear you.
Okay, good, perfect. Because it kind of comes up and down, and the basement's really creepy, and I don't really want to go down there right now. So.
And it's cold.
So just kind of back to the project. Hey, Josie and Maddie, why don't you come here and say hi real quick? So a little bit of Garrett and I's history is that we both have grown up with a community focus. So, and we were both from small towns in Missouri of populations of about 12 to 15,000, depending on what you consider our town. And so being part of the community was always really strong to us. And so we really wanted to pass that on to our girls. However, whenever we bought a winery, we ran out of time to donate. And so this is kind of our way of passing it on in a way of getting our customers excited, getting our families excited to be part of the giving back community. So behind you, because I told them that they had to make an appearance, this is Josie and Maddie. And this was our backup plan in case the winemaker couldn't be there. This is Garrett. He is the other owner and the winemaker. He's on, but his reception's really bad. He's traveling back into town. When Garrett and I met in college, we were actually part of we started what was called the Westminster Service Corps. So we were really involved in being part of the community in the town that our college was in. So this is just a great way for us to continue that. Like I said, since we don't have time and we have kids, which take up even more time, we just wanted to be able to kind of share that love and share that involvement with everybody else that we know. And how, it's not a bad way to go, I guess, if you have to drink wine to give back. That's not too tough, I think. But what this one is a blend of, if you have it in front of you, this is a Limburger Syrah, and magically it is a 50-50 blend, correct? Okay. Start to get numbers blending in my head when I've been staring at spreadsheets too long in the day, so bear with me. But a 50-50 blend. And so with this, just kind of giving you the brief tasting notes because I'm not the expert on this. We were really excited about all the different types of fruit flavors that were coming through. There's even a little bit of vanilla from the, is it American oak that we aged it in. So it is aged a little bit. Again, this is kind of a, I guess a transition away from the traditional Carlson wines that tend to be sweeter, semi-sweet range. This is getting a little bit bigger, and we're aging it actually in oak. So a lot
Can
of
you hear me? Oh,
there he is.
sorry. I think I got good reception. I just wanted to say hi to everybody. And sorry I couldn't be there in person, but hopefully I'll be able to stay on to help answer questions. And I kind of basically what I wanted to clarify on the wine blend is we started off with the Syrah, and then basically as you do benchtop trials, you keep adding and playing with the ratio until you find what you like best. And it was kind of funny because I typically start in the like 75-25 range and go up and down. And basically what happened is I kept adding Lemberger, and at the final blend, it came out to 50-50, which basically never happens. But now it's the second time in my winemaking career that we've made a red blend, and it comes out to be 50-50. So it was kind of fun.
This is the backup plan, just in case you were wondering.
So Garrett, I'm kind of wondering, how do you decide when you're making those blends? Is it just your personal preference? Like, okay, this is what I'm going to, this is the taste I want.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of everything. You know, I was never a professionally trained winemaker. I kind of just learned the business by being a part of it. And so a lot of it is, sitting at my desk, tasting, trying to come up with what we think is the best wine. And typically what I do is I start off at my desk, I make a mess. You can always tell the days that I've done tasting because most of my paperwork I'm supposed to do then ends up stained with red. But I start working it. And usually what I do is I find a sweet spot that I think is a good spot. And then I will put together trials, and then we'll bring our entire team in and let them taste it blind. So nobody knows the ratio or how we blended it. And we just pick it because I think it's important for a winemaker to understand that a wine needs to be for everyone, not just the winemaker.
He does put us through torture. Sometimes it's 9:30 in the morning and there's 5 different wines lined up in front of us, and he says, "Tell me what you think."
I wanted to ask about the blend. I love the peppery finish. Is that imparted more from Lemberger or Syrah or?
You can get pepper from either, but the biggest thing that Lemberger is known for is its black pepper finish. We've worked with, in a few years that I've worked for Parker, we did work with some Washington fruit because we froze out in Colorado. And it's actually one of the things that I've loved is that I really love the pepper finish that our Colorado fruit brings. And as it ages, that Lemberger just continues to get more and more. And it's just one of the characteristics of the grape that I just really, really love.
The pure Lemberger you do it must be really peppery.
It is. As a young wine, it has a lot of red, bright red fruit and cherry notes to it. And then as it ages in the bottle, it's one of the things we've started to do differently is Parker and I always used to joke that we always try to get the Lemberger bottled, and then we would, before we released it. One of the things we have moved to is try to longer both in barrel and bottle for release, just because it does that age brings out more and more of that pepper finish, and we just really, really like it.
Thank you.
Can you tell, excuse me, a little bit more about the Lemberger grape? It's a new grape to me. I haven't tasted it before.
Sure, it's actually one of my favorite. You're never supposed to pick a favorite child, and you're never supposed to pick a favorite grape, but I'm not afraid to say it's one of my favorites. I was introduced to it working for Parker And it's an Eastern European varietal, primarily Austria. It's the second most prevalent red grape in Austria, right behind Zweigelt. It's also known as Blaufränkisch or Blaufränkisch. And basically, I mean, ever since I've started to work with it, I mean, the New York Times has wrote about it, saying it's an up and coming red. It's a red that waiting to be discovered. But it just never has caught on, which I personally think is it doesn't have a sexy name. Lemberger sounds like cheese, and Blaufränkisch says Gesundheit, basically. But it's just it's known for its very low histamine. So if you know somebody that gets bad headaches from red wine, Lemberger could be a great option for that. It has low histamine levels, fairly low, like soft tannins, and then that great peppery finish. I think it's a phenomenal food wine.
Garrett, how long has this been aged in your barrel?
I think the girls should have this wrote down because we did a crash course. The girls should have it wrote down because we did a crash course because we knew this was a possibility. I believe it was around 9 months. I'm nervous about oak. I tend to favor food wines, which I tend to favor more acid and more fruit. I think oak can be very, very dominant. And so I've been slowly working my way up because you always hear about, these great wines being, 2 years in barrel. And I'm obviously being a winemaker that's been learning the entire time and kind of getting my chops in the red wines and trying new things. I'm easing into longer aged. We have a Lemberger, 100% Lemberger. We're getting ready to bottle when I get back. That was aged for just over a year. So that'll be fun. It'll be our longest barrel aged wine that we've made. But this one I think was 9 months. Is that right?
10.
10. It's hard to remember. You have kids' ages and everything else. It's
There
difficult.
is an ish included
It
on
says
the
10-ish.
Well, thank you. It's really good, and thank you for your community involvement and concern about supporting good causes and nonprofits.
So, question here. We were introduced to Carlson, I believe, in 2003 in our first trip to Western Colorado. And it was kind of a wacky place with lots of fruit wine. And of course, the signs for the nudist camp. So I'm just wondering about the transition of Carlson, having a winemaker come in, and when that transition was made, and what your vision is and what your plans going forward are. And I'll just say I love your community connection and what you're doing in the Mesa County community. So it's wonderful stuff.
So I'm going to take, because I'm not sure what Garrett has service-wise, but Garrett and I are married. Sorry, I have to admit that, but we are married, and I guess Garrett started working for Parker in 2011, and not as a winemaker. He came in as a laborer, and so on the site he learned everything about winemaking from Parker, some from some extension courses through UC Davis and University of Washington State.
Washington State University. Go Cougs.
Yeah. I went to the University of Washington, St. Louis, and he went to Washington State University. So that's why I get confused. So some of the education happened then. A lot of it's hands-on, and a lot of it's just figuring it out as you go along. But we were asked if we were interested in purchasing it. So we bought the winery about 5 years, maybe a little over 5 years now. So it's between kids. We had our first child, bought a winery, had our second child. So those are blackout years for me. So those are all estimates, and there's a lot of ish in that timeline.
I say there's a sucker born every minute, and Parker found his in 2011.
So since then, Parker has helped us with the transition. Mary has been around, but she's been retired. They have kind of adopted our children as grandchildren. So they are still around. Their house is right past ours. So if they drive by, they honk and wave. So I know they're going into town if I hear a honk, because it's usually Parker or Mary driving by. So they're still very involved with our family and with the community, but they're at least they have the opportunity to kind of retire. This last year was a little bit rough with all the shutdowns, but they're enjoying some fishing time now. But they still want to check in. There's a lot of history with Carlson Vineyards, and so we keep poking Parker to do like a story time hour.
Mm.
There's a lot of quirky that comes with Carlson. So like you said, the nudist colony. We were the nudist colony. So there was even a vintage of white wine called Sunnydale White. It didn't say nudist on it, but it just had two kids peeking through a fence. And that actually came from one of our friends, one of Parker and Mary's friends too, that lived a mile down the street. He put up that sign in his yard that said Sunnydale Nudist Colony 1 mile up on the right. And we are 1 mile up on the right. So there, we used to do a gag where we'd pull mannequins out of the attic and put them up in the Vines Wine Festival. Unfortunately or fortunately, Lyle sold his sign to, I think American Pickers came by because he was tired of college young men stripping naked in his front yard and taking pictures.
Go figure.
In the age of social media, a lot of that was happening and he was not enjoying that part of it. So the sign is gone, but we'll still bring up those stories for sure.
Yeah, good stories. And one of our introductions to Carlson was a friend of ours from Denver who loved the Pterodactyl.
Yep.
Fruit wine.
Yeah.
And it was a dry pear wine. But
it's coming back this year. Sorry, I was excited.
All right, we'll have to send some to her.
I've got a lot of people asking about it, and kind of with the fruit shortage this upcoming year, we're going to take advantage of stuff we know, and we just haven't had room. I don't know if you've heard other winemakers say that, but that's an issue. When you bring in fruit, you have to have room to put it, and so if we don't have enough tanks, we can't make that extra wine. So this year, I think Garrett's excited about bringing back it's pear and apple, right, Garrett?
Yes.
Lost him.
Yes. Yep. No, you did. I just had it on mute. I didn't know how much background noise I have, but yeah, it's a pear and apple. It's actually, so it may be Parker and I's favorite fruit wine that we make. It just didn't sell near as well. And I don't know if anybody's ever had the family dinner where they say your eyes were bigger than your tummy. Mine tend to be that way when it comes to harvest and bringing in fruit. I tend to get pretty excited, ambitious, and bring in a lot of fruit and run out of space. And I'm trying to, there's times I'm looking at like the plastic cups in the tasting room as possible fermentation containers if we need them. But with the challenges we're seeing with some of the fruit this year, because we did have some freeze out, we're looking at it because of the size we've grown to. We may have to bring in some fruit from out of state. Which is something, my goal is always that we'll never leave a Colorado grower with fruit in hand. So we'll buy all the Colorado fruit we can get, and then we'll go elsewhere if we have to. But one of the perks to that is that I'm looking for ways to bring in as much Colorado fruit as I can, and bringing Pterodactyl back is one of those possible ways, because pears and apples tend to be more cold tolerant and winter hardy. And so that's the hope, at least. That's my goal. I'm excited.
So we got off the question a little bit, but kind of bringing it back, what do we want to become? Well, Parker and Mary set such a strong foundation of being a little bit non-traditional, but also being community oriented. So a lot of the people that we've been donating to have been ones that they've donated to without much recognition for that. So we want to continue with that community involvement, continue to be a place that we can give to people and people can give to us in a way. So being really integrated in that community. We do want to be a little bit non-traditional, but we also want to be approachable. So the biggest thing is we want to take that mystique, that pretentiousness away from wine, and have it be a reason to open a bottle for any kind of night, for pizza night, for burger night, for just because night. And so with that, you know, we're trying to make it affordable, a higher quality for the price point that you're buying at. So we want you to be surprised that a $12 bottle of wine is good, or that you really enjoy a $12 bottle of wine. We kind of have a full range of price points, but we want it to be easy. And that's kind of how we've run our tasting rooms as well, is that we want people to go away with something exciting, but feel comfortable asking questions if they want to, or just sit and taste if they want to do that. So our plans for growth are just to continue with that easy, approachable, keeping the quality as high as we can, but also being able to give back to our community in a way, whether that's just supporting nonprofits by hosting events, or donating money or time or advertising. We just want to be a reason that our community is better. And then just to, I guess, for myself,
Yeah.
like, I'm giving back, but I'm not sure what you would like to add to that, Garrett.
So I was gonna say, yeah, I think one of the things that one of the things that drew me to wine is, to me, it's the most agricultural beverage out there. I mean, a beer, a Coors Light should taste like a Coors Light every single time, or your IPA should taste like an IPA every single time. Even Buffalo Trace whiskey, it's going to taste more or less the same every single time, and really has a big reflection upon the barrels. And for me, what drew me in was the agricultural side. And so one of my goals is to help fix what I think the U.S. Did to kind of almost ruin wine a little bit. We made it this very celebratory, pretentious beverage, and to me, it's something that if you go other places, other countries, when you're on the farm, you're having wine with lunch. You can have it with a burger or Taco Tuesday, and that's kind of my long-term goal, is just to help push back to that. Everyday wine can be really, really good, and it just doesn't have to be about the day you got married or your promotion. It can be just because you have good friends or good family around you and want to enjoy the day. So I'm fairly ambitious, which is why Kaylin holds me grounded. She has a very difficult job, but most people acknowledge it and give her credit. So anyway, that would be that's a very long-winded way of saying that I just hope to continue to push the quality of our wine. Since we bought the winery, we've bought all brand new harvest equipment. We have a new press, new destemmers, new pumps. We just purchased last year. We purchased a brand new state-of-the-art bottling line, so we can do that. And all these things greatly affect and add to the quality as well as our efficiency. And in doing that, it's not so much that we're looking to just make more money. It's more that we're looking to bring a quality product to everyday life of everyone. So, yeah, that's kind of my 7 cents, I suppose.
Well, I have a question.
Thank you.
So you had
Thank you for
mentioned in the
what you're
past.
doing.
Oops, okay, you had mentioned in the past that you had bought Washington grapes. So this year, when you feel that your production might be low, are you going to go back to Washington to buy your grapes, or would you go to another state? And why did you how do you select where you're going to buy your grapes if it's out of Colorado?
Sure. Well, obviously, the goal is always 100% Colorado, because that's why we make wine here. If I wanted to make Washington wine every year, I'd move to Washington. But that being said, like we said, sometimes, I grew up in agriculture in Missouri, and sometimes ag and nature don't cooperate, and you got to find a way to zag when you thought you were going to get to zig. But Washington, the main reason this all brings us full circle, the main reason we look to Washington is Yakima Valley is the #1 producer of Lemberger or Blaufränkisch in the United States. And so when we had to look to source from somewhere else, the first place we looked was, where can we get Lemberger? Because that's kind of who we are on that side of things.
Cool. So a couple of things. One, I really appreciate your guys' community input. And the transition into, a drinkable wine. One of the things that we noticed in traveling in Europe and other continents is the local wine and the drinkable wine, and being able to have something affordable for people. It doesn't have to be gold medal, but it's got to be good. And I think, that's something that Carlson does. for the Western Slope and for the Grand Valley. And I truly appreciate that. And I also appreciate moving away from the sweet fruit wines into something that is drinkable with a meal. We just had a very nice steak dinner from Princess Beef, grass-fed beef, local vegetables, local greens, and your wine paired extremely nicely with that. So thank you so much for that. And I'm really happy to see you guys come in and move this from what may have been, 20 years ago, the moniker of Colorado wines being sweet fruit wines to something that's a good pairing with meals. And I know a lot of people do love sweet wines. So, continuing with the Western Slope fruit is also a very good thing. So thank you very much.
Elaine, I would just like to say, I absolutely love your house. Is it timber framed?
It is. It's actually Japanese style timber frame. We have an eco nest. If you look that up, econest.com.
Oh, wow.
Awesome. Oop.
Oh, no.
A locally grown house.
No, that's awesome. Sorry to sidetrack us there. I'm a woodworking geek as well. Like I did that before we bought the winery, and then my woodworking has subsided considerably due to time, but I still really appreciate, and one of my favorite woodworkers was George Nakashima. And he's one of my favorite woodworkers. I love his style. And it's actually one of the things I bring back to the ability to, the reason I got into the wine business is I love creativity and creation. I like working with my hands, and then I love agriculture, and it's just the perfect combination of the two coming together. And just a little bit of, enough agriculture to keep me on my toes, I suppose.
Well, extend the invitation. Please come over to Paonia, visit us, and you're welcome to see the house and some of the very creative people around here who are doing some amazing architecture as well as amazing wine.
And also, Stone Cottage posted on social media their visit to your winery last week. So it's almost kind of like, okay, why don't you come down and visit us too? And even though our wineries are closed for the season just because of that's the way they are, but you can always call. They'll be available.
That was really fun. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Casey.
Well, that was really fun. Our wine club manager, Megan, and we had visited Paonia and just only got to visit a couple of the wineries out there, but fell in love with them, and we had this idea. We want to get some wine, and Stone Cottage was one of the ones that we thought of that we were like, let's order in, and we got a bunch of our other coworkers in on it, and so we called, and it was going to be like a case and a half or two worth of wine, and what was her name? I forget it. Karen, maybe? But
From where?
From where? Stone Cottage. Karen Hellickson.
Yes, she was so excited and wanted to bring it down herself.
Oh.
Well, I think there's some really wonderful work that can be done regionally, and that the West Elk AVA needs to collaborate with the Grand Valley AVA, and we collectively produce some very unique and original stuff, and together it could make a great force for this country for having some wines that are regionally connected. And again, I go back to experience in other countries where regional wines are so important, and it doesn't have to be us or them. It's Palisade, it's Grand Valley, it's West Elk. to work together on that to produce some really wonderful stuff. And with that, I'll ask the question: what is your production? How many cases is Carlson doing now?
I think we're between 11,000 to 12,000.
Cases.
Yeah, cases.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean bottles, sure. No. Yes, cases. Some of that was a limitation due to how much our equipment could
Yeah.
hold up. And then some of it was me pulling Garrett back and saying, "Slow down, buddy. We got to things out before we expand anymore." My other full-time job is managing Garrett. Now I have a little extra help with that. Thank you.
I get paid.
I'm still here.
And you're still here. So that is kind of what we're shooting for now until we get some of our efficiencies in place and make sure that we're ready to handle more with the weirdness that last year brought. We're always working on trying to improve ourselves. So
Yeah.
I have a question. So you're from Missouri, I gather. How did you end up in Palisade?
Long story short,
We used a U-Haul.
I knew that was coming. That was a very short version of it. But Garrett and I met in college in Missouri, and then he followed me to grad school. And then we had 6 months to take an adventure anywhere. And so I took my internships out west because we thought it was our only opportunity to have that freedom without big job attachments or big moves. So we moved out to Grand Junction for 6 months. And afterwards, I took on a full-time job or a couple jobs, and then told Garrett, I'm making money now, go figure out what you want to do. And so he went to go volunteer and then ended up with a full-time job and then ended up with a full-time career, and then drug me in on it as well. Yep. So that was the shorter version, longer than the U-Haul version, but a little bit shorter than the real
A
version.
little more accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tell people that if you look, Kaylin and I have been married for, that was dangerous, going on 16 years. And I tell people it's proof that a very intelligent, smart lady can make one mistake and they'll follow her around the rest of her life. But yeah, that was, our intention was always to move back to Missouri. But we just got here and loved it. And much to my family's, I come from a very traditional Midwest farm family where everybody used to complain about my aunt who lived 2 hours away. Much to their chagrin, we decided to stay and raise two of the next generation out here. So, but we love it.
Okay, well, are there any other questions from anyone? Or we'll move on to Whitewater.
Well, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Hope you enjoy the wine.